Hey guys, how you doing today? This is David Lucas back here again. Welcome back to my channel. And now today I'm back at you guys here again for another review here. And this time is actually the next installment finally into the DCEU. And that movie is none other than James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Yeah, guys, if you guys have been following this channel for any while, you guys know that this has been one of my most anticipated movies in a while. I love James Gunn as a director. I love his Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I love Slither, Super. James Gunn is just a really good filmmaker, in my opinion. And the first Suicide Squad, if you guys know me, you guys know that I did not really like the first Suicide Squad. Honestly, before the original Justice League cut, the Joss Whedon cut, before that came out, the first Suicide Squad, called just Suicide Squad, was maybe my least favorite DCEU movie at the time. It maybe still is my least favorite, counting Justice League, but I don't really count Justice League as part of the DC anymore. I just focus on the Snyder cut. But yeah, to me, the first Suicide Squad is technically one of the worst DCEU movies. I just did not like it, and yeah, you can tell, though, that there was a good movie behind it. You know, there was a good movie behind it, but at the end of the day, it's pretty obvious. Even the director, David Ayer, has stated that his movie was butchered, and the studio came in and really messed up his entire vision. And you can definitely tell that in the first cut that it was a very studio-heavy filled, like, big business dude filled type of movie. And you can tell that a lot of the good was overshadowed by the bad, because the bad was bad in that movie. But there were some things that worked in that movie. There were actually a couple things that did work in it. And I feel like that's what this movie took, what James Gunn took, what did work on that movie, and then brought it in here, and it's just times it by 10. I just want to be straight up with you guys. I love this movie a lot. This is probably one of my favorite, probably is my favorite DCEU movie. Now, before I get into this review, guys, if you like this video, make sure you give me this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your support all the time. All the support you guys give me helps this channel grow, helps this grow, helps everything grow. It's just all good if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it if you like this video. I know I'm just rambling on and on, so let's get on to the review. Now, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is basically technically a sequel. I honestly count it as a sequel. I know some people count it as a soft reboot because it doesn't really follow any storyline from the first one. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This just doesn't really follow the same storyline from the first one, but to me, it does serve itself as a pretty good sequel, so I am going to count it as a sequel because to me it kind of all fits. You do have some characters returning from the first one onto this one, and in it too, something I really liked that I want to start getting on to review. Like in this movie, and there's something that I really liked in this movie was that how they, like, when Harley and Captain Boomerang first see each other, they kind of say, hey, Boomers, hey, Harl. Like, they kind of, like, you know, have, like, that camaraderie with each other and stuff like that. Same thing with Rick Flag and Harley. They have that camaraderie with each other, and I really liked that, and I liked how that kind of stuff carried on to this one. Also, too, what I really appreciate, too, from the first is that, at least in the first, you know, even though I didn't like it, how they did it, they did kind of explain what the Suicide Squad was and what they are for and all this stuff and all their backstories and everything. So I liked how in this one, when we get into this, since we already have that first one explain everything, we don't really need all that stuff explained. We don't need all that extra, like, what was that, like 45 minutes of just the beginning before anything happened of introducing the squad. We don't need any of that anymore because we already basically know what this is. We know what Task Force X is. We know what the Suicide Squad is. We know who Amanda Waller is. We know what her game is. We know what her deal is. We know what she does. We know these people are criminals, so let's get right into it. And I like that, and I really appreciate that, and I kind of like how that does serve as a good sequel to the first. Even though I didn't like the first, I like how it does serve as its own sequel to it. Something, too, that I really loved about this movie is just how every character was. Every character had some kind of development, had some kind of personality, had some kind of distinctive way to them. Even the characters in the very beginning, by the way, I'm just going to say this is a full-on spoiler review. I already did my, non-spoiler review with my buddy Alec a couple days ago on the release day at a couple Fridays in the at the movie theater. I did our out-of-theater reactions. So if you want to see a non-spoiler review, go check out that video where we don't spoil anything. We just review our basically first initial thoughts. But every character in here is actually done perfectly, I feel like. Every character has, even the ones that die in the beginning, in the very beginning when they come out, the first team, the first like kind of distraction team, which wasn't really supposed to, I think, they were all supposed to die because Blackguard sold them out. I'm pretty sure Waller didn't know Blackguard sold them out because she did look pretty confused. She looked pretty pissed off when Blackguard rat him out, played by Pete Davidson. Like how even every character, even the ones there, like Javelin, Weasel even. God, Weasel had some kind of character. I loved Weasel. Each one of those characters at the beginning, and we all see them. We see them interacting on the plane and everything, and it's kind of like, oh, I gotta want to see this now. I gotta want to see them. Oh, shit. And then they all die. They all die except for Rick Flag and Harley. Even Captain Boomerang, and that is something that I really liked, is that how when Captain Boomerang died, it kind of signified, and it showed us, everybody's life at risk. And you felt that throughout this entire movie. And that's something the first Suicide Squad didn't have at all. Everyone survived. Only, I think, really survived died was Slipknot and, what's his, I honestly cannot remember his name. I am so sorry. Diablo, that's his name. But they were the only ones that died. And that was in the very beginning of the movie, and that was at the very end of the movie. No other's lives was at risk. But now, seeing all these people die, especially a main character from the first one, Captain Boomerang, who was in the first, played by Jai Cartner, who I love in here, he died at the very beginning. And right there was like, yeah, anyone's on the table. And yeah, anyone really is on the table. And it really, honestly, gives you that promise that anybody's life is on the table. Speaking of characters and everything, Harley Quinn, this is probably the best I think we've gotten of Harley Quinn in the DCU. This is, in my opinion, the perfect live-action version of Harley, is the Suicide Squad's version of her. Margot Robbie, I think, in this one, and what helps it too, I think, is that all this, because basically if you look at it in a way, the first Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, and now the Suicide Squad is kind of like a whole, like, kind of like a trilogy for Harley Quinn. It is kind of her trilogy, and I like that. I like how we kind of are now getting this character development. We see her from the first one where she started out where she was the Joker's girlfriend, and then we see in Birds of Prey where she emancipates herself from her and becomes her own person. And now we see her being her own, we see her being Harley. We actually see her being Harley. And some people complain, saying, oh, Harley got too soft in herself. I do not see that at all, because there's a scene in here where she kills a dude in cold blood and just sits there and just like, yeah, if I'm, whatever. But she just sits there. It's completely fine after she just shot a dude in cold blood. She killed, I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, this dude was a bad man. What he had planned was horrible. The president, he was, planning on killing children and anyone who ever opposed him or speaks up against him. And she was like, yeah, if I ever see red flags, which is going back to Joker and the first Suicide Squad with her and a Joker, which I like that connection. She says, I'm gonna kill the dude. And if I ever fall in love and I see red flags, I'm gonna kill the dude. And that's what she does. She kills him, and it's such a Harley way, because she's just fine. I mean, this dude is dying. He's holding everything. She's like, yeah, I get it. I could have just ran away, called the cops on you, whatever, never seen you again. But she's like, yeah. And she just kills him. It's completely fine with it. Yeah, I love it. And that is classic Harley. And the scene that proceeded after that with her, attack was the best Harley scene ever, I feel like. The editing in this movie, I loved how the editing in it, how James Gunn kind of like edited stuff. It actually felt like a graphic novel, the way how he edited it, which is brilliant, and he did it in a brilliant way. And I remember back in the day, Ann Lee's Hulk tried to do that, almost like graphic novel typed. Well, that way didn't work, the way how he did it. But the way how James Gunn did it, I feel like it set a precedent for other comic book movies of maybe how they should flow their movie, or maybe it will make it feel cool, because it was so unique and done so differently. I love how it felt like you're reading like a comic book, like a whole comic book issue, like how there are certain parts in there where you have the title cards, and then as the title cards are kind of like being told as in like kind of the environment of what's being done, like the blood splatter, like Zavant's blood everywhere, and that comes to Warner Brothers Pictures, and then you have like the flames saying Operation Harley and stuff like like that. Like, I like that. I like how the titles are doing that, because that's just like a comic book. And I also like, too, how in certain things, how, like, we stop at one point of the group, and then we cut to 8 minutes before with another point of the group, and then that point of the group ends up converging and ends up colliding with the other what just was about to go on. And that is just like a comic book when you're reading an issue, and then the issue ends on like a big like cliffhanger, and then the next month you get another issue, you go and read that issue, and it starts out following another group of people, and then as the issue goes, you end up seeing, oh, it's all connecting, and then you converse up to where the ending of the last issue was, and then you see it all connect, and you're like, oh my god. And that reminded me so much of a graphic novel, of an actual comic book, which I love so much. And you can just tell that James Gunn is a true comic book fan with this. It was a really unique and different way to do it, which in my opinion is now the definitive way how to kind of flow a comic book movie. I also love too in this one how, which is very different from the first one, is that the first one, none of their powers really kind of were useful or really had anything to do with the actual mission. They just had powers, and boom, they were just powers put there, and then they just did what they did. There was no reasoning for a certain member or to be in the group. It was just random. In this one, you actually see that each member has a specific reason. King Shark has a specific reason. He's the largest one on the group. He can get them inside the base that they're trying to get onto. Bloodsport is a military expert and a weapons ammunition expert. So boom, right there. Peacemaker is a dude that follows orders, is a law-ordering soldier, a full-on soldier who is a good marksman, basically. You got Ratcatcher, who can summon a bunch of rats if they need to for extra hand. You got Ratcatcher right there. You got Rick Flag, who is the kind of the leader, who is kind of military leader, you know, sending these guys off there, who is the veteran kind of in a way. I like how every member, and there's certain moments and certain situations where each the squad will get into where they'll be like, oh fuck, and then one of the members, even Polka Dot Man, I forgot to mention Polka Dot Man, he's one of my favorite characters in this thing. His powers too came in such handy in certain moments, and you would sit there and think like, how does a Polka Dot Man make sense? Like, what could a Polka Dot Man? They even mention it in the movie. They go, what could a polka dot guy do? There's so much good self-awareness, too, in this movie that I love, that just went right good with it. And I loved how in Polka Dot Man, certain situations, his powers with his, stuff, his shooting out polka dots, came in handy. Like when the tree thing, when they were shooting down those guys, and then with the Starro, and then with all the other things, his powers came in handy at good moments in the movie. Ratcatcher, hers did too. Shark, his did too. Bloodsport, his came in too. Like, you would sit there and watch this movie and be like, yeah, they wouldn't have gotten out of certain situations without each other's powers in there. And I loved that. I loved how each member has a purpose for this movie, for this mission. Even the camaraderie with all each other. I love, the movie does start out, they're villains. They don't like each other. They're just kind of thrown into the situation, whatever. And I get that, and I like that, but throughout this, you end up seeing the camaraderie a little bit form. Much better than the original. It was just, they only knew each other for like a day, and they're like, yep, we're best friends, we're family. Even think at the end, Diablo says that you guys are my family and stuff, and it's like, what? No, okay, I get it, you guys are probably friends, but that's a little bit too much. And in here, it's not. Here is progressed really good. Here, they're not calling each other family or stuff. They're like, they're just soldiers on this mission. And I like how there's this one scene where they go to a bar. There's another bar scene, but this one's done so right. It just shows them letting loose. It shows them drinking a little bit, Bloodsport. Rick Flag, they're old soldier buddies. They mention that in the movie that they're old soldier buddies. And we see them kind of, having a beer together, laughing, having a good time. Seeing us, dancing like this and everything. Ratcatcher too, who I love Ratcatcher too in here. She's doing really good in here. She's dancing and all that. And it really does show the camaraderie. But then at the ending, when the big betrayal with John Cena comes, who he did an amazing job. And I'm going to get onto that John Cena in a minute. He did an amazing job in there, and I just really love when that eventual betrayal comes. It's like you feel that because you get it. It's like, yeah, they are just soldiers on a mission. They aren't necessarily friends, but they do have respect for each other, and you see that, respect laid out, and I like that, how it's not over exaggerated. The music in here is even done really good too. If you guys know James Gunn, he's really well known for his music and his good music in here, and the music is done great. And that was another problem I had with the first one, is that the music they put in here didn't really make sense in the first one. It didn't really make sense for this big like freaking opera or whatever, a big pop song being put on while they were just introducing the characters, and it was weird. But in this, every song makes sense for this certain scene. In the very beginning, when they're introducing the characters, there's a Johnny Cash song playing about being in prison while they're in prison, which makes sense. Even in the Harley scene, she's talking about the Lonely song and all that, and it goes with that scene. Every music, every kind of thing goes with the scene and goes with the dialogue and goes with the story so perfectly in here. And James Gunn is a master at that. A couple I want to talk about, a couple of my standouts of this movie. Just a couple that I love, because I loved almost everybody in this movie. My standouts is Peacemaker, Ratcatcher 2, King Shark, Weasel, Polka Dot Man, who I keep on forgetting, but Polka Dot Man. Just starting out with Peacemaker and John Cena's Peacemaker, I really love. This is probably my favorite performance from John Cena, I think, altogether. This is, I think, my favorite performance, and in this movie, John Cena has finally proven, to me at least, that he's a good actor, and he's actually good, just a good actor in general. Because that one scene when he betrayed them, when he was going to betray them, to save the car, to keep peace, and everything like that. And he has holding a gun on Rick, and then he ends up killing Rick Flag, which I said that everyone's life in this is at risk, even Rick Flag, and Rick Flag dies. And when that scene, when John Cena kills Rick Flag, and he stabs him, you see that pain in John Cena. You see that he truly did not want to do that. He's not even speaking in that scene. He's just moving his eyes and his mouth and his facial expressions. You can tell that he was hurt and that he was in pain, that he did not want to kill Rick. And he even said, though, in a couple minutes beforehand, when he was holding a gun on his head before they started fighting, in that fight scene too, oh my god, the way how James Gunn directed it from within the helmet, and you see them fighting within the helmet. Oh, that was so good and so unique. I loved it. On to that, when he's holding a gun at him and he's saying, like, I don't want to do this, man. Don't make me do this. Like, don't make me do this. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, you can feel, and I believed as a person watching this, like, Cena truly does not want to do this. Like, Peacemaker himself is not wanting to shoot Rick Flag. He has respect for Rick Flag. He likes him. He sees him as a soldier, but he has to follow the law, and he is under Amanda Waller's direction to get rid of all the evidence that, the American government had to do with Starro. Rick Flag didn't agree with that, so Peacemaker, of course, has to go kill Rick Flag, and you can tell in that he did not want to do that. Even when he was holding a gun to Ratcatcher 2, and she was begging, she was like, okay, you got the drive, just take the drive, why kill me? And he goes, and he's like, and he looks down, he's like, because I'm thorough. Like, he did not want to do it, and I love that. That's something that really stood out to me with John Cena, and now I am full on, like, I can't wait till the day it comes when John Cena's show, The Peacemaker, comes, because we got to tease at the end that he's still alive at the ending of the movie, and I like that. So now we know The Peacemaker show is going to be taking place right after the Suicide Squad, and I can't wait for that now. Ratcatcher 2, she was done so good. She was the true heart of this movie. She was the heart, the emotional pull. She's what really built this movie, and at the end of the day, she ended up being the best, the strongest character of this whole movie, and I don't know who would ever think of in a million years that Ratcatcher 2, not even the original Ratcatcher, but Ratcatcher 2 would be the strongest person out of the whole movie. And they did it so perfectly, because with the setup for her in the beginning, and then we get those backflashes with her and her father, played by Taika Waititi, which was done so, that got me really good, especially on my second and third viewing of the movie. It got me. And you see this build-up, and you see it build up with the rats, too, and Sebastian and everything. And then when the scene comes at the very end, where her and the rats basically, which is, again, a team effort, Harley helps, Bloodsport helps, even Polka Dot Man, rest in peace to Polka Dot Man, who dies after he finally becomes a superhero. He dies, rest in peace. He all did a team effort, and then it was a Ratcatcher at the end of the day that ended up saving the whole day. And I loved how she was the strongest villain at the end of the day, and she was the emotional pull, and I loved the actress playing her. I don't know her name, Daniela something. I'm so sorry, I can't pronounce her name, I don't want to screw it up, but I can't wait to see her more into the DCEU because she survives at the end. And I just can't wait to see her more in movies in general because, wow, I was so surprised from her as an actor. And yeah, I can't wait to see more of her. King Shark, too. King Shark was a big standout that I didn't even think that I would love. Like, I loved Sylvester Stallone as King Shark. I was so emotionally attached to him. I loved how he's reading a book upside down and everything. And I love this scene, too. A scene that I want to point out that, because I know this review's going on long, but the scene that I want to point out that I really loved the King Shark was when he was sitting there in the bus and they were driving and he was seeing those people, kissing and seeing couples outside and people, having fun together. There was a scene where you see him and it focuses on him and he just kind of looks like, and it's just, that scene right there is one of the best things of the whole movie for a CGI shark, and it makes you feel so much and it makes you relate. Like, I related to that shark at that moment on a personal level. And I end up relating to Shark. I want to sit there, put my arm around King Shark, and hey, buddy, I'm right here with you, dude. I wanted to be there with them throughout this whole movie. And I never would expect that for King Shark. Another standout, one last standout I want to talk about was Polka Dot Man. Oh my god, Polka Dot Man was amazing. I loved him. I love how they set him up, even with his story, how he explains how he got his powers, how he has these issues where he has to spit out, the polka dots and everything. I love that. I love that they set that up and they gave that to him, and I really think that really gave him more to his character. And even the actor too, I can't remember his name, but he's in a lot of DC stuff, and I love him. He's a lot of Marvel stuff too, and he did just a great job as Polka Dot Man, as a loser character basically. And I love that how he made Polka Dot Man honestly almost an A-list character where I want to see more of him. He dies and it sucks, but I want to see more of Polka Dot Man. He was great, and his powers, too, were actually really cool. His mom gave him this, and now he sees his mom everywhere, and now he hates his mom, and all this stuff. His mom gave him his powers and all that. And I love that kind of comedic relief, how we're seeing his mom every time he sees everything. I love that. Finally, what I want to talk about before I wrap up this review is I want to talk about Starro. Starro, they did great. I love the build up to Starro, how they're building up throughout the movie, how even when the movie very first starts, we're already know, okay, this is the villain. This is the villain, which you guys are now set on a mission for, which we didn't have in the first one. They were just put together just because, and then there was a villain. And this, there actually is a villain, actually is a mission that they need to go on. And I like it when we end up finding out about Starro, which I love. Starro, the original Justice League character, the Justice League villain, the original Justice League comic books that I love. And he's in here. I never thought I'd see Starro ever in live action. And the way how they do Starro is they bring him in, and he is honestly taken against his will and tortured and experimented on against his will. And when he ends up, unleashing on the city and everything like that, yeah, it's horrible and destructive. But his last lines, his last words before he dies was, the only time I was happy was when I was floating, staring at the stars. And you end up being like, oh man, you actually feel sorry for him. He didn't ask for this. He didn't ask to be put here on Earth and be experimented on and be tortured and all this stuff. All he wanted to do is be up in space staring at the stars. So basically, as a whole, the Suicide Squad, directed and written by James Gunn, is, I gotta say, probably top 3 of best comic book movies ever made, in my opinion. I don't have a single complaint, and I watched this 3 times. I'm about to be going on a 4th time watching it, and every time I tried looking for stuff, and maybe it's some little nitpicky stuff, but it's so nitpicky to the point where almost every movie has those kind of problems, and where it doesn't even affect the movie anything. It is a truly, and I don't say this especially about comic book movies much. I only said this about one comic book movie, that was Logan. This is a perfect comic book movie. What James Gunn did was a straight up perfect comic book movie. To the editing, to the making it feel like an actual graphic novel, adapting the actual source material here perfectly and flawlessly to where you're reading the comic books, and I loved it. I loved what James Gunn did with this film. From moment to start, the comedy was done perfect in here. It was at the perfect moments, the perfect time for the comedy. It never felt like there was too much comedy. There was never a slow part in this movie. Even when it got a little bit slow, it kicked it right up into gear. Each character was done perfectly. Each character was represented perfectly. It was all done perfectly. Each actor nailed the roles perfectly. Best version of Harley Quinn. Peacemaker, Ratcatcher, King Shark, and Polka Dot Man are big standouts. Idris Elba as Bloodsport was great. I love the DCEU connections and kind of relateds that they had in here to where it does still feel connected in DCU, kind of like how they did in Shazam. This is now my #1 favorite DC movie next to Shazam and Man of Steel. Probably my top 3 favorite comic book movies of all time. Yeah, the Suicide Squad, for me, is, I can't believe I'm saying it, is getting a straight up 10 out of 10. Straight out 10 and 10. Go watch this now. It's an A+ movie. I loved it. It's so much more than just a comic book film, but it's a pure, true comic book film. It is what every comic book film should aspire to be, in my opinion. And now, next up on the list, we got Matt Reeves' The Batman coming out, which, oh my god, this might even surpass that. The Batman might surpass the Suicide Squad. Who knows at this point? At the end of the day, guys, I love the Suicide Squad, and let me know down in the comment section below, and let me know your thoughts on the movie. Did you guys like the movie? Did you guys did not like the movie? Did you like it better than 2016 version? Or do you just not like both of them? Let me know down in the comment section below, and let me know your thoughts on it. I always like to know. If you liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. I always appreciate all your support all the time. And until next time, guys, we'll see you later.